Hi, and welcome to this 30-minute yoga practice. I'm Andrea, and I'm really glad that you're here. Today, we're going to focus on anti-slump postures. I don't know about you, but I catch myself all the time in front of the computer, slumped over it, my steering wheel. I need something to open up my front body. So that's what we're going to do today. I have a yoga mat. If you have one, that's great. If you don't, a carpeted floor would be wonderful. We are going to use a chair today. So it would be great for you to have a chair at the ready. Also something like a folded blanket or even a folded big bath towel would be great to pad our knees. And I've got a couple of yoga blocks. If you don't have yoga blocks, thick books might do the trick. And then we'll get started in our mountain pose. Stand with your feet hip distance apart. Get a feel for the earth beneath you. You might rock a little forward and back, even a little side to side, just to feel the balance. All 4 points of our feet on the ground. Big toe mound, pinky toe mound, 2 points at the heel. And then without needing to use a mirror from the outside, from the inside, feel your hips over your heels, your shoulders over your hips, over your heels. Turn your palms away from each other at the shoulder joint, the beginnings of our anti-slump. Let your heart lift. And then lean your head back so it's ears over shoulders, over hips, over heels. And use the majesty of our mountain to bring awareness to your breath. We breathe all the time, but often with very little awareness around it. So take this time, standing in your mountain, to breathe in and out through your nose. Ideally, if you can, from now until the end of our practice, that's how you breathe, but mostly breathe and with awareness. If you take your gaze to the horizon, you'll be less likely to slump or to strain in the neck. Visualize a bright horizon. I mean, why not? From here, a couple of sun salutations. Inhale, arms out to the side, a V shape overhead. Exhale, hinge at the hips, not around to the back, hands to your thighs. Inhale your heart forward, get some length and space, smile your collarbones. You might even smile yourself, and then exhale, hinge at the hips. Inhale, belly firm, stand, arms out to the side, thumbs to the sky, V shape, and then return to your mountain, gaze at your bright horizon. One more time like that. Inhale, arms out to the side, thumbs to the sky, V shape. Exhale, hinge at the hips, hands to your thighs. Inhale your heart forward, make sure that it's a hip hinge, not a rounding. We're smiling, collarbones, and anywhere else. Exhale, increase the fold at the hips, but stay with the length in your spine. And then inhale, arms out to the side, maybe a little bend in the knees remains, thumbs to the sky, V shape. And then return to the majesty of your mountain. Ears over shoulders, over hips, over heels. Interlace your hands behind your back. Feel how that encourages a deeper smile in the collarbones. What we want to avoid is we're not compensating and taking it into our lower back. So with your feet hip distance, let your low belly lift, smile the collarbones, and return to ears over shoulders, over hips, over heels, but with a little bit more smile, a little bit less of our slump. Stay with it, bring more awareness to lifting the low belly. We want to do that so that we take that drop into the low back out of the mix, not just for this pose, but for others that we're going to do. Breathe into this new spaciousness. 3 rounds of breath. Still, gazing at our bright horizon. Now bend your elbows. Notice which of your pinkies is on the bottom because apparently that's your favorite. And then relace with the other one. Not that it's not a favorite, but it's just not the one that our brain goes to first. And come back to the smile. Come back to the beautiful supported posture. Low belly assuring us that we're not dumped into the low back. And if things feel a little tight or sticky, it's just because they have been longing for us to give them the love that we're giving them now. And they've been shortened up in our slump. Last couple moments. And then unlace your hands. We'll take one more of those sun salutations. Inhale, arms out to the side, thumbs to the sky. Maybe you feel evidence of our interlace as you shine your heart. Exhale, hinge at the hips, hands to your thighs. Inhale, even here, our interlace might be helpful as you extend the spine. Then exhale, a little bit more hinge at the hip, maybe a tiny bit more straightening of the legs, but not much. We're not forcing a thing. And then inhale, stand tall, arms out to the side, thumbs to the sky in a V shape. Return to your mountain. Find your inspired posture. As we move into our next exercise, you might already use your chair. I'm going to use my blocks. I like to set them up there tallest. So if you don't have blocks, it could be the chair or your thick books. Move your mountain so that you're standing pretty much in between your blocks, or that you have the base of your chair quite close by to be able to use it with your hands. We'll use our sun salutation to come into a lunge position. So a little bend in our knees, and we've got hip distance stance. Inhale, arms out to the side, thumbs to the sky, V shape. Exhale, hinge at your hips, hands to your thighs. Inhale your heart forward. Take your hands to the base of your chair or to those tall blocks and step your left foot back. You're welcome to adjust the stance any way that's helpful. So a wider stance, meaning side to side, like stepping the right foot to the right a little bit, the left foot to the left a little bit, might make your balance feel a little bit more solid. See if you've returned to the slump that we know so well. Don't judge yourself for it. Just see if you can smile. The collarbones and anywhere else. Right hip draws back and left hip draws forward as we're here. And remember how we lifted our low belly to make sure that we didn't dump into our low back with our interlace? Let that be true here as well. It's great to stay exactly as you are here in this lunge and use the hands on your support to help you with the endurance of it. Anytime you need to leave a pose before we do, honor that, celebrate it. You do you. Some of you might enjoy taking the arms alongside your body, finding the interlace that we just did in our mountain, dragging that interlace back behind you, smiling the collarbones. Remember, we have to lift the low belly so we don't collapse there. And this is a little bit spicier. So you might not stay here long, just feel what it offers and take your hands back to the support if that's helpful. 2 more moments. Breathing. Left foot steps hip distance from the right foot. You want to firm the belly as we move. Hip distance with our feet, hands to your thighs. Inhale those smiling collarbones. Exhale a hinge at the hips. And then inhale, firm the belly, arms out to the side, thumbs to the sky, V shape overhead. Stand into your mountain. Great, inhale, side 2, thumbs out to the side, V shape. Our sun salutation takes us where we're going. Hinge at the hips, hands to the thighs. Inhale, heart extends forward. Left foot stays forward, hands come to the support of your blocks or to your chair. Step your right foot back into the lunge. Give yourself any adjustments that are helpful. That could be that sideways, left foot to the left, right foot to the right. You can support yourself with your arms quite a bit, but just notice, even for myself, how it's tempting to collapse. That's what we want to try to get away from. This is not a practice of judgment. This is not you doing something wrong. This is us tinkering in our laboratories so that we can learn. If we stay curious, we stay young. Now this is perfect. We can stay exactly as we are and get plenty out of it. Remember, it gets spicier. We have to, all of us, lift the low belly to support that. Arms along your side, perhaps you interlace. And if you're doing that, can you find the least favorite pinky and put that one on the bottom? We love it. It's not least favorite, but we don't maybe go to it first. Couple more moments here, and remember, you don't have to have the spice. Not everything tastes good with hot sauce on it. And then if you have your interlace, return your hands to your supportive blocks or your chair. Right foot hip distance from left foot. Firm your belly as we go. Hands to thighs. Inhale your heart forward. Exhale, a little extra hinge at the hips. And then inhale, arms out to the side, V shape overhead. And we stand into our mountain. We'll move to hands and knees, and some of us will use our chair to help that. Inhale, arms out to the side, thumbs to the sky. Exhale, hinge at the hips, hands to thighs. And either use your blocks, your chair, whatever's helpful to find your way to the ground. We're coming to hands and knees, and this is where that folded blanket or perhaps your beach towel might feel like a good idea underneath your knees. So take a moment to find that and get it situated underneath your knees if it's helpful. And then wrists under shoulders. So shoulders over wrists on our hands and knees here. We want to keep a solid idea in the shoulders here so we're not collapsed. We're still smiling our collarbones even though we're now weight bearing on our arms. Take your left leg back behind you as if you were going to stand into a plank position. Curl those toes under, lift your low belly. Lift your left leg off the ground. Come onto your right fingertips, see how that is for balance. And then as if shaking someone's hand, take that right arm forward. Push the ground away so that we keep that solid feeling in our shoulder girdle, in our shoulders. And then, are you breathing? Are you breathing through your nose? Right hand down, left knee down. If you want a child's pose in between any of these that we do, just sink your hips back towards your heels, and you can always roll your wrists out if that would be helpful, because sometimes weight bearing on the wrists feels like a lot. When you're ready, make your way back onto your hands and knees. Remember, it's shoulders over wrists. We're pushing into the ground. You can have your padding in. You can also have your toes curled under if it's helpful. Right leg steps back as if flirting with a plank position. So we feel the strength and length of that leg against the ground. Really feel the press of your right arm into the ground, both arms, but we're coming onto the left fingertips in a moment. So right leg lifts, left fingertips, maybe shaking hands. Regardless, for all of us, breathing. 2 more moments as we are here. This is great core work we're sneaking in. And then left hand down and right knee down. Let's take a child's pose and roll out our wrists for a second and come back to our breath. And remind ourselves that we are in no rush, that yoga is all about slowing things down. And then come back when you're ready to all fours. We're going to do this in phases, and this is a very you do you. kind of an exercise and moment. Step your left leg back behind you like we did before. Solid in the shoulders, pushing the ground away. Then begin to bend your left knee. So lift the left leg and bend the left knee. Your foot feels like it's pressing up towards the sky a little bit. That's a lot. If you need to stay there, completely fine. Consider the possibility of doing something that feels a little bit like what some of us did in our lunge. So low belly is lifting. You'll come onto your right fingertips, and then just imagine the uplift of your heart and reach back towards that foot, and just the attempt to reach back is plenty. We want to be careful not to collapse into that left shoulder, and of course we're breathing. If for some of us, holding on to the foot works out, it's not a struggle, it's not important. The action of trying is the win. And then keep breathing, stay with it. We are now smiling in our collarbones, and we are smiling open our left hip. So that lifted leg, it's what's called extension at the hip, and we have extension at the shoulder. Extension sounds like a pretty good thing to be doing, doesn't it? When we're talking about getting away from a slump. And then very carefully, without slingshotting anything, let go of your left leg and your right arm. You can reach them away from each other. Put it all down on the ground. Take a child's pose. That was a little spicy. Pause. Back to hands and knees. Shoulders right over our wrists. This time the right leg steps back. And you can just feel the leg responding to the ground beneath it, because we're going to take the ground away, but we get to use it for now. Lift that right leg. Bend the knee. Let the bottom of your right foot feel like it's trying to get to the sky. You got to lift that low belly. Remember our conversation about keeping things solid and not collapsed into the low back? Very important here. Push the ground away with your right hand. Think about taking your left arm back behind you. So it's like the reverse move of when we were shaking hands a moment ago. And the action of just trying is perfect. Meet yourself where you are. All we can do is the best we can do. If holding the foot somehow works out for you, in some ways it almost makes it a little easier because you've got some leverage. Fill this shape with breath. 2 more moments. You're doing great. Remember, we're not a human slingshot, so carefully let go of the foot, arm and leg in opposite directions, and then it all comes to the ground, and we snuggle into our child's pose once again. Now this time, we've got a little bit of a setup, okay? This is where I said we were going to use our chair. So I'll move mine at an angle where I hope you can best see me. It also might be a good idea to take your padding and put that in front of your chair, because this is actually where our knees are going to go. Watch me first and then join me. So now we're standing in our mountain, but on our knees. I'm going to keep my toes curled under. I recommend that maybe you do the same here. Remember how we had ears over shoulders, over hips. Now it's over knees instead of heels. Take your interlace behind your back, and then imagine resting that interlace on the base of your chair. And that's going to give you an idea of how close or far away you want to be from the chair. Because we're going to undo the interlace. You can join me if this is easy to follow, or watch me and then join me. And then once you have the base of your chair, find that uplift of your heart, low belly lifting. It feels a little bit like what we just did on our hands and knees when we held on to our foot, yeah? Keep breathing. Let your chin stay parallel to the ground. It's a habit for so many of us to try to do this with our chin, and we want to do it right there in those smiling collarbones. It's not a huge back bend. If it's too intense, you can always leave it before we do. Notice how different this is than when you sit on that chair that your hands are on, operating the technology that we're also attached to these days. Deep breaths, just 3 more here. Really, really great. Not a slump in the house. Now just ease your way out, because that was actually a pretty long time in a pretty delicious big stretch, yeah? We'll make our way to seated, and you will want to move the chair a little bit out of the way. I like to use my blanket for the seated pose that we're about to do. So the folded blanket is a great idea to sit on. And I like to have one of my blocks, or perhaps in your case, you're using a big book. Right foot into left inner thigh. So we're bending that knee. And this is where it might be nice to have a block to support your knee. Now sit up tall. Wear into our seat that lift of your heart. Curl your left toes back towards you. Now, it's a hinge at the hip, like when we did our sun salutation. And it may not have to go very far. Maybe just seated upright, in fact, is the best plan. What we don't want is to suddenly find a slump that we've been moving away from this whole practice. Breathe through your nose. And let this be a little bit of a meditation. So I'm going to be silent. I haven't forgotten about you. But I want you to see if you can focus just on the sensations in your body and how that dances with your breath through your nose. Last few moments as we are. Now, slowly, with a firm belly, bring yourself upright. As a dismount, help it along. Take your hand onto that right thigh. Turn your knee to the sky. Let both legs extend out in front of you. So seated on something should help prevent this kind of a thing. It could even be a pillow. It could be an additional block. For a moment, in between sides, interlace your hands behind your back and let that interlace press down into the ground and lift your heart. Now, I don't mean the dump in the low back, right? So think about that stretch we just felt on our chair and let that exist here, even as you find that great posture. It's like a little tip of the hat to our time in our back bend on our chair, in between sides of our hip stretch. 2 more moments here. Imagine if you wore this feeling in front of your computer or behind the wheel of your car. And you can do this when you're seated in your chair, anytime, just to remind you of our practice here today. Undo the lace of your hands, and now bend the left knee, left foot into right inner thigh, and perhaps you use your block or your thick book underneath that thigh. We're square over our right leg, and it's a hinge at the hip that we find. We're not really interested in going very far because we've worked hard to get rid of our slump. We don't want to have it find us here. This is where I get quiet. You crawl in and let the sensations in your pose and the rise and fall of your breath through your nose be your focus. for a meditation minute. Thirty more seconds, you can do it. If your mind wanders, you know what that means? That you're human, because it happens to us all, me too. Just bring it back to the sensations and the breath. It's the ability to bring it back that is the mindfulness. Nobody's mind is going to go blank. We just try to create some space in our body and in our mind. And then slowly, slowly make your way up from here. We're going to help ourselves out, right? So left hand on the left thigh, knee to the sky. Straighten your legs out. They can be hip distance or toe knuckles touching. One more time, interlace behind. And then put the least favorite, although we love it, pinky on the bottom. Sit up tall. Let this be the recipe for how you walk out into the world after this. Last couple moments. Undo your interlace. Take yourself off of your props. So the blanket or several blankets or block, whatever you're sitting on. Bend your knees and put your feet hip distance on your mat. Once everything is off and out of the way, lie down. Once you're lying down, just an easy twist. So with your feet hip distance, walk your feet in maybe a little bit closer to your body and just let both knees drop over to the right. You could think of your left shoulder blades snuggling onto the ground and wearing the smiles that we've found this practice into a twist, because there will be twists and turns in life, and you will wear your smile into all the twists and turns out there, just like in here. And then the center, and we'll do the same thing to the other side. You might scoot your hips a little bit towards your right, and then let the knees spill over to the left, and snuggle your right shoulder blade so it feels like the smile remains. Come back down the middle. Final Shavasana meditation. Snuggle both shoulder blades underneath. Step your feet as wide as your mat. Let your knees fall in on each other, and just so carefully lift your hips just to make some space in the low back. And you could stay like this, or if it's comfortable, straighten one leg and then the other. Let them be about as wide apart as your mat. Feet flop open. Close or cover your eyes if you're comfortable with that. And then no more efforting. All surrender. Let yourself let go. You're always welcome to stay here in your final Shavasana meditation as long as you'd like. If you're ready to find your way back, light movement in your fingers and toes, maybe a stretch of arms and legs in opposite directions. Bend your knees and place your feet on your mat if they're not there already. Let your knees drop to either side. Use the strength of your arms to come up to a comfortable seat. Any seat will do. Rest your palms up or down on your lap. Lift your smile in your shoulders and heart and anywhere else. Wear it out into the world. Thank you so much for practicing with me. I'm Andrea, and I look forward to us practicing together again soon.